This podcast is brought to you by the Heldridge Hotel, New Brunswick's only 4-star hotel and a preferred hotel of Rutgers football fans. The Heldridge helps you make the most of your game day weekend, providing premium accommodations in the cultural heart of downtown New Brunswick. Restaurants, bars, theaters, parks, museums, and more are only steps away. Whether you're traveling alone or with a large group, book your stay at the Heldridge and make the most of your game day weekend. Visit theheldridge.com today.
The new podcast, In the Shadow of Princeton, starts as the matriarch of a prominent Princeton family is found stabbed to death in her locked basement. Investigators look from a serial attacker to her family to Princeton University students. One hot-blooded investigator sees a conspiracy. Is he way off base, or does privilege let you get away with murder? In the Shadow of Princeton is available wherever you get podcasts, or you can binge it ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rant. Got a full, jammed-packed show. 3 of us were at the big Rutgers-Wagner basketball game, which was a lot of fun. Had a great time. We'll recap that. We got to do our Picks Pod edition here of Rutgers, Minnesota. Got a family out there. That's how they pronounce it, the correct pronunciation of Minnesota. Where do you want to start, fellas? I'll leave it up to you. Hoops on the brain, or you want to go right to football?
Hoops is on the brain. Let's start there.
Hoops on the brain. I'm with you 100%. 75-52 victory over Wagner. Look, we got to start with Dylan Harper because this was, I kind of joked with him. Like it felt like we've been waiting a decade for his first game. I don't know if that you felt that way too. Like he since he was in diapers, we're like, oh, someday that kid is going to play for Rutgers. And he finally played for Rutgers. And, you know, the bar is as high as you could possibly go. 5-star prospect, NBA draft pick, lottery pick. And I don't know. I thought he lived up to it and then some. Yeah. And this is where the difference is, Brian. And tell me if you agree with this for me. Around the rim. Gets the ball around the rim. 6 for 7 layups. I mean, we talk about Rutgers' problems shooting from the outside last year. How about they were no better shooting from 2 feet last year? And last night they're 21 of 32 from 2, 66%. I don't know. That's Dylan Harper. That's getting the ball in on the basket. That's converting these little layups, finger rolls, steals. It's getting passes to players for easy shots. That to me was the biggest basketball difference besides obviously just this fantastic player we get to watch.
Yeah, to accentuate that, they went 18 of 22 at the rim, 81.8%. That I didn't look back. That has to be the best percentage they had last year.
Is that what it was? Wow.
Yeah. Like you said, Dylan was 6 of 7 on layups. And another thing worth mentioning, they only took 5 mid-range shots. That's kind of why that 2-point percentage is so good. Me and I'm sure a lot of people were pulling their hair out of their head every once in a while watching Rutgers over the years because they just take so many mid-range jumpers with guys who are just not that great of a shooter. You know, Derek Simpson was a loyal soldier, played hard on defense, but he took some maddening 2-point shots. Ace Bailey's going to take a lot of mid-range jumpers. A little different when it's Ace Bailey doing it. But the point being, they didn't take a lot of them yesterday. They made a lot of tough shots at the rim, not just Dylan. PJ Hayes had one. Jordan Durkak had one. Had to work a little bit after Lathan Somerville's behind the back pass. But Dylan Harper, this is things we saw in high school. I watched them do this to Bergen County high schools and just destroy them. Ramapo, they had no option. And you were worried that maybe when the competition goes up a little higher, it'll be a little bit more difficult. Not at all. In transition, he's going full speed, dropping the ball in the cup. He's finishing over contact. He's finishing with his right hand. He's switching hands in the middle like he's Michael Jordan. He's doing so many creative things with the ball in his hands around the rim. And I think that's his best asset is that he's able to just, like he said after the game, if you give him an inch of space, he's going to drive it on you. He's going to get to the rim, and you could bring 2-3 guys. You can try to make it difficult. He's going to put the ball in the hole, and that's why he's a 5-star prospect, and that's why he's different than any other guard Rutgers has had this century, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Maybe Corey Sanders is the closest comparison in his ability to score at the rim. Besides
at the rim, maybe Corey couldn't hit a shot, though. I mean, yeah, maybe at the rim, but man, you know.
Right.
Different player defensively, different player over. Yeah, totally.
Harper anecdote from the press conference. Remember when he walked in and he goes, "Oh, this is what college basketball is," in a room full of reporters, and that's what made me remember. Like, this was his first game. Right. We label him with this and already call him an NBA draft lottery pick, right? But like at the end of the day, he is 18 years old and a wide-eyed freshman in a lot of ways. Like, he's still a kid.
That was funny. The two things about that were great. And this is a guy who had his press conference to announce he's going to Rutgers in like the Fanatic Studio Manhattan on live TV. I don't think he was really blown away by like the three of us, the Targum, Jerry Carino. I think for the most part, he was kind of playing it up a little bit, but that's great too, because, I saw a little slice of Ron's personality there, like a little the Harper swagger. He's a funny kid. He's quotable. I don't know if Rutgers was trying to decide if they're going to make him available after every game or what the situation is going to be like. But man, if I'm Rutgers, I want him out there as much as possible over these next 5 months, because he exudes like a basketball star.
Good point. Where you're saying,
absolutely. That's what it is. It's like a persona. That's not, and it seems very authentic too, which is maybe even better, right? Like, it's not scripted. He just has a great personality, and the skill set on the court it matches everything. It's a total package.
Dylan reminds me a lot of Ron when he speaks. Like, not just a great quote, but even the way he kind of answers questions, the way he talks. If you didn't know they were brothers, you could tell almost immediately just talking to them. And he's that same kid when you're interviewing him after a Don Bosco game. Like, I was at their season opener last year when they destroyed, again, another poor Bergen County team, and he talked the same way he did after last night. It just struck me that, I was covering those teams with Ron Harper on them, and I remember 12-year-old Dylan being on the court after the game, after we come up to the press box and write our little stories. I look down at him while the ladies are cleaning the floor of the rack in the stands. He's there shooting the ball, putting shots up, and you wonder, right, how good could this kid be? Could he follow in his brother's footsteps? And then he says that he walks out for warmups and he looks at the stands, right where he used to sit for all those games with his brother. He sees it packed from top to bottom, and that's when it hit him. So I think it was a cool moment that, again, I think because of the hype you mentioned, Steve, all the anticipation, it's been 11 months. There was a bit of fatigue, honestly. Like, it wasn't as exciting as it would have been if it had been maybe a month after that announcement, for example. Right. But it's cool to remember in the grand scheme of things. Imagine telling a Rutgers fan 4 years ago that this would happen. I think their mind would explode. Yeah,
and you told me something, and I didn't believe it. I had to laugh that there's only 14 of these at the rack. Is that the number?
I believe it's 14. Let me get the schedule out for you.
When you told me that, and that's the number of home games, you hadn't added up, but yeah, it's got to be something around that number. And to me, when I heard that, I was like, really? It's jarring when you think about it. There's all this hype, all this waiting for it. That's the only chance if you get to see this guy in the building. That was one of them. Done.
It's the cost of playing these non-conference games in Las Vegas. That's 3 games right off the board. You have 4 games to start the season: Wagner, St. Peter's, Monmouth, Merrimack. You have the Seton Hall game. You have Columbia, so that's 6 non-conference, and then you have 10 Big Ten, so that's 16. I exaggerated maybe a little bit, but it's not as many as you would have hoped, right? So I think that's why I was so surprised that last night, 3 hours before tip, you could get a ticket to watch Dylan Harper make his debut at Rutgers, an NBA draft pick, NBA lottery pick, 5-star player, the greatest recruit in program history. You can get into the door for $7. I don't care. I don't care if it's Wagner. I don't care if it's Piscataway High School. I don't care if it's a under 8 Pee Wee team. It's Dylan freaking Harper at Rutgers. I was surprised to see that.
Mm-hmm. We talk about Ron Harper being such a fixture around the program. He was impressed on his Twitter feed by the guy wearing his number, which is kind of funny. Tweeted out about Lathan Somerville, and I guess that we were talking about this on the show. What we wanted to see from this game earlier in the week, and I was very curious about what this team was going to look, what the team around him was going to look like. Didn't see that coming from Lathan Somerville. I didn't think he was ready. I didn't think he had the level. I knew he was a good offensive player, but he was really good last night. Active around the basket. That pass he made, Pat, where he throws it over his shoulder. He has a funny personality too, like wearing his hair out, and the big fro usually has it in braids. He was talking about that. And the good part about him, you would hope, if the world of NIL, the world of the transfer portal, like you're seeing the beginning of a player who's going to develop 4 years in traditional college basketball fashion, right? Over a period of time, maybe he's the future of this program for long term.
Absolutely. I said Brian in the post-game press conference asked Steve Peichel what play did he like more from Somerville, the behind the pass, back pass, or over the shoulder pass, which was terrific, or I don't know, his 3-pointer maybe?
No, he was running in transition, catches the ball, spins around a defender, goes up and under the rim, and finishes a layup.
Right. So the answer from Peichel was, well, I liked his rebound.
8 rebounds. It's
8
great.
rebounds, which is true. If you think about it, that's what his job is going to have to be. He's going to have to be a physical guy and learn to bang on the blocks, right? So I think that was a good answer in my opinion. So yeah, Somerville, very much the key at center there, his development and long-term progress. But even physically, I know a lot of people talked about how much he dropped some weight. He looks the part, and he's got a couple years to get bigger, stronger, and I think that's very exciting to have a prospect like that.
It doesn't answer the question, Brian, right? But at least it's another option. Like, I don't know how he's going to do against a better front court.
Yes, that's very important to impress that this is Wagner, right? They don't have this mammoth center. He kind of had a bit of an easier time against these guys than he will in the Big Ten. But it's encouraging because you would hope that he would develop to become the starting center by January. And it looks to me like he's ahead of schedule in that regard, especially because Emmanuel Ogbole had, as bad as you could have expected his first game of the season to be, it was worse. Yeah. I mean, just rough day for him, loses the opening tip, gets immediately targeted on the other end. Wagner's first play, they're giving it to the post, repositioning like they were going after him. He gets a technical foul, yanked from the bench, comes back on in the second half, 2 fouls in 85 seconds, gets yanked. Rough debut, but I will say it can't get any worse than that. So there's nowhere to go but up for Emmanuel Ogbole. But back to Lathan, a few things. The weight thing, it's an issue that he had to lose all that weight. He probably came in a little heavier in the offseason than anyone would have hoped. But credit to him, he looked svelte last night, thinner than I saw him the last time, even like 2 weeks ago. So he's clearly working on his body and taking that part of the thing seriously. I always knew his offensive skill set was his best attribute. You knew he was kind of really good with the ball, can hit some mid-range jumpers, can create offensively. I wasn't expecting him to do spin moves in transition, off a catch, up and under. I wasn't expecting behind the back passes. I wasn't expecting him to be as smooth as he was. Again, It's Wagner. He looked really smooth. And the rebounding to me was the best indicator that he is making progress. He wasn't just grabbing balls. He was getting them in traffic. He was aggressive going after the ball. It wasn't something that he got because he's a big guy. It was something he got because he pursued them. And it really seems like he's taking that really important coaching point from Steve Peichel to heart. So yeah, I could not be more encouraged by Lathan Somerville than I was last night.
Pat, you wrote about the other guys, Jersey guys, the rest of the team, and a bunch of them stood out. And the one thing I will say, like I really didn't. It looked like a team that understood its roles in the first game. Like there was maybe one exception, I don't name them, but most of the guys kind of got it. Like what this is, all right, I'm not the star of this team. Here's what I have to do. I'm thinking of PJ Hayes, thinking of Zach Martini, thinking of Jeremiah Williams. I mean, what guys around impress you the most?
So every time I think about this team and the leadership and veteran experience that's needed to match this freshman star power, the guy that comes to mind is Zach Martini. Right, a big physical guy. And I wrote in my story, like his first Rutgers moment after loving this school and worshiping Greg Schiano, wears number 99. He's this big physical presence. The first thing he does is deck somebody on an illegal screen. It's like that. That was perfect.
It was a cheap call, by the way. I'm sorry.
He hit him good, man.
Man, look at it. Wasn't moving. I don't know. Anyway.
The point I'm trying to make is that he gives them some physicality. He's not afraid to, hit somebody on the blocks, and then he has that finesse on the outside that he can shoot. So I think he plays that role really well. PJ Hayes was second leading scorer in this game off the bench. He's obviously going to be a guy they count on. The guy that didn't contribute because he's still working his way back from injury, Tyson Acuff, Steve Peichel went out of his way to mention that he was the 7th leading scorer in the country last season, and he expects that volume to pick up. It's just, he's just off to a slow start. So I think overall, you're encouraged. And the last one, you're speaking of the Jersey guys, Jordan Durkak, like exemplified that Jersey grittiness, tenacious all around game that I didn't see coming from him. I knew he was a great defender at Merrimack and all that, but the way he went to the rim, the way he chased loose balls. Like, he was just all over the court. And I think that's the type of player that's foundational for Steve Peichel. And that's why he played so much. And it's going to be a guy that's counted on tremendously.
Yeah. Faster than I thought, Brian. Dirkaction.
Yeah, listen, Dirkak was the player of the year in the NEC, which is where Wagner plays, and he looked like he was really comfortable playing against this kind of team. I didn't watch a lot of Merrimack basketball last year, to be clear, but I can imagine when he's being the best player in that league, a lot of it is because he's bigger, stronger, faster than everyone else in the league, and he's just bullying past these guys. And that's what he did. Like I said, I think he drew 5 fouls in the first 15 minutes, and he's just barreling through dudes, getting to the rim and finishing hard. He looked really comfortable. I'm not sure he could play the same style to the same extent against better competition. I know that's a theme we keep on hitting today. But yeah, I was impressed with him against Wagner. I was impressed with him against St. John's too, at least on the defensive end. So yeah, listen, a lot of encouraging things across the board. I want to reiterate with PJ Hayes and Zach Martini. Those are your 2 snipers. Really good to see them go 2 of 4 from 3 and hit some open shots. And PJ Hayes, exemplified efficiency. That's what you want out of a guy coming off the bench, give you some scoring, shoot some threes, make some shots around the rim, and kind of do nothing. Don't overextend himself. He's not risking passes. He's not pushing the ball in transition. He's doing what they're asking him to do, and that's exactly what they need from these role guys.
Right, and now they get Ace Bailey back. You would think within Steve Peichel was not worried. It didn't sound worried. It sounded like it was a precautionary sitting out. He was there. He was cheering. It certainly looked fine. I don't know if it'll be Monday against St. Peter's, but you would think next week, maybe. They didn't give us a timetable. That's what day-to-day means. And that'll be interesting to see, like, what are the roles now? How do they change? Like when you put a player like him who's going to demand the ball, going to take a lot of shots. Steve Peichel said something about him he's going to have games where he's 10 to 15 rebounds. I wasn't expecting that necessarily that part of it from him. But yeah, that's going to be the next step for this team. Working him in and seeing what it looks like then.
I think it's pretty easy to work in Ace Bailey. You kind of let him do what he does well, and
do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
Everyone get out of the way.
I think this is an interesting thing that they're going to have to deal with now that they have these 5-star guys who have a lot of value on their bodies and are having an eye towards the NBA. Where, like you said, he was moving fine. It looked like he was walking with a slight limp, if anything. So clearly, Steve Peichel was very coy about the kind of injury. Rutgers is not disclosing it. I pressed Steve Peichel on it. He called it a basketball injury, which, I mean, harder to be any vaguer than that. But it clearly seems like it's a lower body thing, the way he kind of was limping very slightly. Mm-hmm. But, if this wasn't a 5-star kid and he has the same injury, is he playing against Wagner? I don't know for sure, but I would think he'd have a much better chance if this was Jordan Dirkak and not Ace Bailey. And I'm curious, if this was Purdue and not Wagner, would he be playing? That's an even bigger question that will, probably mean something down the line if the same situation repeats itself in Big Ten play. So again, this is new territory for Rutgers and Steve Peichel and the coaching staff and everyone around the program. Situations like this is clearly very low leverage, low stakes. Rutgers destroyed Wagner without him. But this is the new reality and the kind of new situations that Rutgers is going to find itself in this year. It's kind of the cost of doing business with 5-star lottery pick guys.
Someone said a good way to spend a Wednesday night. That's for sure. We got 15 more of those. So fun start to the basketball season. All right. Football, quick transition, no transition.
Here's the transition. Brian said Peichel couldn't say anything less about Ace Bailey's injury, and I said, wait a second. He could reference the availability report.
Check the availability report. It's so great. Questionable. Yes. That'd be great. Its only difference is it should have been you asking the question, like you do to Shiano, so he could look down and you're like, oh, Pat, my Italian third son just doesn't get it. All right. Football. Minnesota, we go from the hoops to SHI Stadium. I don't know what to expect from this game. I do know I'll start here with this game. I think this game will determine if we're going to have a third of the season, like the final third of the season, right? Like what we see from this team, if we're just playing out the string, or if there's going to be a real push to get someplace to second straight bowl game, to do all the things that this program had wanted to do this season, we're going to know by like 2:00 on Saturday. You guys agree with that?
Yeah. I don't think they need to win this game to go to a bowl game, because I think The last 3 games, there are at least 2 winnable games there, but I think if you win Saturday, you have 3 more cracks at 1 more win, right? And that's a lot easier than 2 more, needing 2 wins in 3 games. And this, here's how I put it in our predictions. Minnesota is the best team Rutgers will play in the last 4 games. I think they might be the most beatable team of the 4. This team is a carbon copy of Rutgers. This is Rutgers, but better. This is Rutgers with a better offense, more ball hawking defense, slightly better at getting pressure, and they play the same style. They run the ball a ton, which lends itself to Minnesota winning in 1-score games. They had 1 blowout this year in Big Ten play against Maryland, just destroy them. But otherwise, every game was a touchdown or a field goal game. And when that happens, that's been the bane of Rutgers' existence, right? When you play these close games, the margins are so thin, one thing goes the other team's way, you kind of end up on the wrong side. But this could benefit Rutgers because if this is a field goal game with 10 minutes left in the 4th quarter, you never know what's going to happen. So listen, I think I have no idea who's going to win this game, but I am fairly confident that it will be close.
I will just add to your bigger point, Politi, the only thing to determine the rest of the season, you're right. By 2:00, we will know because we will know if this defense is lifeless again or if this defense has somehow gotten healthy, figured it out over the bye, switched up some alignments, formations, personnel. I think very clearly if Minnesota goes up and down the field on them, I think we can say, all right, this defense is done. It's not coming back. Right. And that will determine the fate of this team over the final month.
Yeah, all the storylines with this game, and it's interesting. And I put in the notes here, PJ Fleck, a bit of a prick? ? And that might be a much, but I don't know. Just kind of like we wouldn't say Ethan Kalikmanis' name at the press conference, maybe because he can't pronounce it like me. I don't know, like what. It's just kind of a weird thing to do. It wasn't like you were trying to keep this kid from leaving. I mean, we've seen the story. I don't know what he's angry about, or if he's just trying to get in the kid's head, or what that's all about. To be honest with you, but there is certainly I would be very interested to see some of the handshakes to see if they're after the game, if they're greeting each other fondly, if Kirk Shiraka and PJ are hugging it out. If I assume that Greg and PJ are smart enough not to have a Mangini drive-by handshake or anything like that. I don't know if their relationship had gotten to that level, but it's like a good little second sexy storyline. You wouldn't necessarily expect Rutgers, Minnesota to be, when throw away the records when these two teams play, but it's a little juicy.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of had this circled on our calendar all year. I think this game would have been so exciting if Rutgers had held up its end of the bargain and been 6-2. This would have been a really, really juiced up game. I think there is some stuff simmering beneath the surface. Like none of these guys are ever going to say anything, right? Every game is the same. They don't look at it's all baloney, right? But I get why they do it. I don't think there's any love lost, and I think both sides really want to win this game. I'll say that. I think I don't want to overextend myself here, but I don't think PJ and Greg have a big issue between them, honestly. But I think there will be a lot of emotions on the field. Let's say it that way.
Yeah. Right. When you hire away your other guy's offensive coordinator for $1.4 million, I think, yeah. I mean, and then PJ strikes back and hires a really well-regarded defensive coach that Rutgers wanted to keep. I mean, that stuff. I get it's the business, but it's also, I mean, it leads to some hard feelings, right?
And don't forget that Shannon didn't only hire away Kirk Shiraka, he also hired away Joe Harris-Simiak.
That's right.
So both coordinators are from
both
Minnesota.
Coordinators.
So,
wow.
And then CJ Heatherman was a Rutgers linebacker coach the last 2 years, very close with Harris-Simiak. He goes to become Minnesota's defensive coordinator. It's like almost hard to keep track of, right? To be fair, the back and forth, and even Ethan Kaligmanis coming over. Rutgers has taken a couple players from the transfer portal from Minnesota. Flip Dixon's another. Mayan Hanatu last year, right, was Minnesota. So yeah, it's a really interesting storyline, and I'm sure it plays out, but behind the scenes we'll never know for sure. But I will say PJ Fleck, he's a firecracker on the sideline, right? Like you see him mouthing at referees, and so he's definitely a big personality in the sport. And he's done a tremendous job there. So you got to give him credit.
Right. Yeah, none of this matters. This entire conversation is just filler.
Sure.
If the Rutgers defense isn't better than the last 2 games, I mean, certainly. You put these stats in your story about it, Pat, today. 120th, 22nd nationally in tackles for loss, 107th in sacks, and tied for 93rd in takeaways. This is not a Greg Shanley defense. We've talked about it. We know all the reasons. And I guess I wonder, like the fact that they're making some of these guys available to talk to you now. Maybe are we going to see, is Tyreen Powell, the injury thing, maybe is he going to be back to closer to the player that we kind of expected him to be? He hasn't been, and it's not his fault. I mean, he's just hobbled. Do you think a week off was enough time for this defense to be back?
Yeah, well, Chiano answered that question pretty honestly, to his credit, about the health and the guys. And what he said was a lot of these guys on defense, the ones that are questionable every week. So in addition to Powell, you're talking about Aaron Lewis, cornerbacks, Flip Dixon. So really key guys that are all dinged up, and they're going to be, they don't need a week. They need 4 to 5 weeks is what he said. But the week is definitely going to help. So yes and no. Right. Will they be better? I think so. Will they be good enough? I don't know. It's hard to say, but you got to think that just the reset to mentally and physically come back and say, all right, we've hit rock bottom. It can't get much worse than this. Let's get this thing together. I think from hearing the guys talk this week, I feel like they've done that a little bit. So I'm partially encouraged.
It helps that Minnesota isn't exactly an air raid, throw the ball around the yard. I mean, that's the teams they faced the last 3 weeks, right? Like USC, UCLA, and Wisconsin under what's the guy's name? I can't remember the offensive coordinator now. Wisconsin's air raid offensive coordinator.
Yeah. I don't know.
The guy everyone wanted to hire before Struck. I know I can't remember his name. Anyway, they're a little bit different. Like I said, they're a carbon copy of Rutgers. They want to run the ball down your throat and throw the ball just enough. So that certainly will help. On the injury front, Kyle Monangai, I know we were not worried about him, but thought about him because he got hit hard pretty at the end of the USC game and got knocked out of the game. I spoke to him this week. He said he anticipates he will play. So that's encouraging. And again, I think Kyle Monangai would have to be really, really banged up not to play. But it's always good to hear him say he expects to play. And he said that he does want to make a bowl game. It would be important to his legacy that he leaves this program better off than he got here and to build on last year. So Greg Schiano played that question a little coy when I asked him, but the players clearly still have an eye towards the postseason, which I think will give a little bit of boost heading into this game that, again, for that objective is very important.
One last thing on the defense. You brought up those stats that I had in my story. The other big stat was that Rutgers last year was so good defensively because they tackled so well. According to Pro Football Focus, they were neck and neck with Michigan, national champion, in tackle rate. Right there, 1 and 2. Rutgers finished 4th. Michigan was 1. This year, Rutgers is 64th in tackling, which isn't awful, but it's not one of the best in the country in tackling like it was last season. So that to me, more than the tackles for loss, sacks, and takeaways, is the biggest statistical decline in this team. And then also the pressure on the quarterback. You're not getting takeaways. You're not playing disruptive defense because you can't do that. So it's all kind of a mismatch of failures. But 4 weeks ago, figure it out.
Greg,
mishmash of failures. I love that. It's good.
I did ask Greg about the picks. They have 5 picks this season. They only have 2, I think 3 against Power 5 opponents. He mentioned exactly that. They don't get enough pressure to force bad throws, and they've been playing from behind the last 3 weeks. So when they're playing from behind, opponents run the ball. They don't throw as much. Maybe this week is the week they finally get an interception. They had 1 pick 6 this season. Not a lot of game-changing plays on defense. Maybe this is the week.
Could be. All right. Let's do know your opponent. I got some good stuff for you here. I got some good Minnesota stuff. Guys, if you guys have forgotten, every week I ask them 3 dumb questions about the team Rutgers is playing, and they get the answer wrong. That's pretty much how this game goes. I think you're going to get all 3 right this time. I feel good about it. But here's the first question. The Gopher mascot is a tradition as old as the state of Minnesota. This is not something I just threw together in the 1920s. This is like a long time ago. So why was Minnesota tabbed the Gopher State. Not just university. It's the Gopher State. Right. A, and there's no Tim Walsh joke here, I promise. A, in 1832, a large family of gophers blocked the Mississippi River, which, yes, is in Minnesota, causing great havoc in the Twin Cities. B, the name was chosen after an 1857 political cartoon depicted 9 gophers with the heads of local politicians pulling a locomotive train. C, it was a symbolic choice because, like gophers, Minnesotans hunker down for the winter. Or D, simply put, gophers are the most commonly found burrowing rodent in the land of 10,000 lakes. Tough one. This is a tough one.
Yeah, this is good.
This is a tough one. I think if you puzzle it through, you figure it out.
I'll go B.
B.
I was gonna say B as well. We're a journalism product here. Let's go with that.
It's correct. Head of depicted 9 gophers with the heads of local politicians, and someone said, "Hey, let's name our state after that. That's a great idea." People are crazy in the 1800s. Yeah, I love that crazy shit. All right.
What year was that? 1897, you said?
1857.
Oh, 57.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how powerful that cartoonist must have felt?
That must have been like, yeah, I thought this was a dumb idea, but now it's the Gopher State, baby. Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
That's good.
All right, second question. Which Super Bowl winning coach is the 11th all-time passer in Golden Gophers history? This is, I didn't know this either. A, John Gruden. B, Gary Kubiak. C, Tony Dungy. Or D, Doug Peterson. Which of these 4 coaches is the 11th all-time passer?
I'm going Gary Kubiak.
Down with B, former Broncos quarterback. Okay.
I like that too. I'll go with B.
Nah, it's Tony Dungy. How about that shit right
Wow.
there? Wow, I did no idea. I did not know that. I learned that myself.
Yeah, wow. That's a good one.
Kubiak.
He doesn't talk like a Minnesotan.
He doesn't. Maybe he's had it beaten out of him after 40 years away. All right, finally, and this is something I did not know either. Minnesota actually has a rich college football tradition. Which of these statements is true? A, it won 3 straight national titles, rowing the boat from 1934 to 1936, and is the last Division I program to accomplish that feat. B, it featured Bruce Boo Smith, the 1941 Heisman Trophy winner, who was so beloved they made a movie after his life. C, it played in back-to-back Rose Bowls in 61 and 62, the first Big Ten team to play in the famous game at back-to-back seasons. Or D, all of the above.
I'll go with D.
I think you're setting us up to fail because they all seem very realistic. I think D is appropriate, but let's go with the Heisman. Boo is the guy.
Boo Smith. Yep,
Boo Smith.
I'm in your head, Pat. It's D. They're all right. They're all right. Good job puzzling it out, Brian. You figured it out. Yeah, Boo Smith, 1941 Heisman.
Do you know how hard it is to get a movie made of you in 1941? It must have taken
It's
like
a
$10
whole
million.
on the Wikipedia page. There's this whole. If you want to dive into a deep wormhole about this crap, yeah, Boo Smith. Yeah, apparently the movie was like panned because it was not true to the time. I forget exactly what it was, but anyway, so good stuff. Yeah, but 7 national titles at Minnesota, and I get back in the day, you could just say, "Hey."
I thought you were going to give us something on the ski-uma thing.
I decided and I left the ski. So this is a good bit of trivia. Thanks to Kevin Fine, future Rutgers Hall of Fame fan, Hall of Fame. Ski-uma is what they say. It's the slogan chanted after football games to celebrate the victory. The origin of this is pretty crazy. So the phrase originated in 1884 when 2 university rugby players, John W. Adams and Wynn Sargent, I'm going to call him Keith Wynn Sargent, we're looking for a team yell. Adams heard a young Native American boy yell "ski-oo" after a canoe race on Lake Pepin. So Adams added "ma" to make it rhyme, to go with the lyrics of "rah, rah, rah." And that's how you end up with ski-uma. Again, people in the 1800s, man.
It's good.
It hurt some young Native American. You know what's the true travesty here? We know John W. Adams and Wynn Sargent. Who's the young Native American boy? Where's this kid gets no credit for this? It's his thing. He won a canoe race on Lake Pepin, and there's nothing. There's no reference to his name. Completely left out of Minnesota sports history. We've gone off.
Good job this week. Good job. Really good. That might have been the best one yet. Good job, Ski-uma. Yeah.
I'm trying. All right. What are we talking about now?
We get to our picks.
Oh yeah, picks. What's the record? Who's winning? None of us deserve anything. We're tied?
We are tied.
What? What's our record?
I believe 5-3 against the spread, and Pat is right below us at 4-4. I want to say.
Okay, all right. I know we all. I understand with this. We're gonna mix it up this week, so it's exciting. All right, who wants to go first?
I'm in the lead with you, so I will go first.
Right.
I think this game will be close. I think these teams are again a near carbon copy of each other. I think Minnesota is just the better version of whatever team these guys are trying to be. And I think Rutgers will be within a score in the fourth quarter, but ultimately won't be able to pull it out. And by the way, we should mention this up the top. The line is 6.5. Minnesota.
Oh, wait, yes, okay. It hasn't moved. It's been 6.5 the entire time. Is that right?
Someone sent me
4.5 at some point.
Someone sent me that it opened at 4.5. I've seen it at 6.5 the entire week.
Right,
and frankly, I think 6.5 is a nicer number anyway.
It sounds about right.
So having prefaced that, I will go Minnesota 24, Rutgers 20. The Gophers win. The Scarlet Knights cover.
Win in the cover. Okay, good pick. All right. I think it's going to be close as well. I come back to this a lot, and I know there's no realm in statistical reality for my thoughts on this, but I just don't think Minnesota's a 7-3 team. Like, I don't know. I get it. They're a 6-3 team now, but it's like, I don't know. I think they're going to come back to earth. They're going to have a bad game here. Rutgers has the week off. I mean, I just do not think the team we have seen the last 3 games, especially, is the Rutgers team that this team was going to be this year. I just don't think it, and I don't believe it yet. I think they still have something left in the tank. If we're going to see it, we're going to see it this week. They're going to win the turnover battle. Ethan's going to have his best fourth quarter in lead them down to a drive. We know the offense is doing well. I think Rutgers is going to win. I think it's going to be really close. Look like a 27-24 kind of game where the Scarlet Knights steal one in the fourth quarter and finally feel good about themselves. So I'm sticking with Rutgers for this one.
Interesting.
That's one word for it.
I like what both of you guys said. I'm trending more towards exactly what Brian said, that Minnesota is a better version of Rutgers. Great running back, quarterback that can just manage the game really well, and a defense that is relentless at taking the ball away. You put all those things together, and that's the identity that Rutgers was supposed to be. And it hasn't happened yet. To Steve's point, maybe this is the week that it finally comes together, right? The offense has been good. The defense has been bad. Against Nebraska, the defense was good. The offense was bad. It just hasn't been a total package once. I just, after watching this all season, I can't believe that that's going to happen. Maybe the bye helped. We'll see. But I think the way that Minnesota takes the ball away and protects the ball is going to be huge. And I just can't believe in this Rutgers defense. After seeing how bad it's been, I don't think that 1 week's going to help solve the issues. Those stats that we talked about are very alarming. So I see Minnesota scoring 30 points on Rutgers, and Rutgers will be competitive. I think it's a very close game at the half, but I think, a takeaway here, something like that changes it, and Minnesota covers and wins. So I'm going to say Minnesota 30, Rutgers 21.
All right, so cover. This is good. So the standings will shake up next week because I know all of you are really curious who's going to win this between the three of us. All right, good stuff. Let's take some questions, and this is we also have to eulogize. We have to acknowledge that the Rutgers Tech service is coming to an end this week. RIP Rutgers Tech Service. We've always asked for questions from Rutgers Insider, and people have been asking for an explanation. And I got to tell you, folks, I love your conspiracies better than the reality. I really do wish that Greg Schiano had somehow found a way to navigate behind the scenes to destroy us sending out injury reports and whatnot, but I'm afraid it's much more boring. It just was losing money. Apparently, none of us. I thought it was quite profitable, but there's a reason I'm a journalist and not in business school. Apparently, we were losing money at it, and someone finally looked into a ledger of things and said, "Well, that's stupid," and there you go. So that's very simple. Yeah, but kind of enjoy doing it though. Texting people at all hours in the night. We've had some great moments in texting history.
No doubt.
Waking folks out of bed.
I was surprised at how much people were sad to see it go. So many of you texters sent us saying they're going to miss our halftime texts at basketball. Meanwhile, I thought I was just bugging people, while they're trying to just watch the game. So we appreciate that. It's nice to have a little community, and the community is not necessarily dead if people don't want it to be, right, Steve?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we've got a Discord, which has been a lot of fun. If you're an old person like me, or relatively speaking, sign up for the Discord. Give it a shot. It's it's a way you can communicate back with us. We had a fun little group going. I was in the concourse talking to Mike Vorkanoff, who's a sports writer for the Athletic, Rutgers grad, and then someone walked past, and before you get a look at him, just yelled out, "Hey, Discord admin!" I was like, "Oh, that's funny." Been called a lot of things at Rutgers sporting events. I've never been called a Discord admin before. So yeah, I mean, it's just we'll send out the link again here. I think we just did. So if you haven't signed up for it, give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. So far, it's been pretty good conversation. So we have any questions from people, Brian? I don't.
You haven't checked? I'll check.
I didn't
in honor of our jumbled jumbled end of the texting service era, we will have a jumbled selection of questions.
My favorite part of the texting service was early on when people often will reply to it like we'll get en route or what's for dinner or stuff like that. The one time that stands out, someone was texting, I can only assume, and if you're out there, if someone hears this and was in the text service and can confirm this, was texting a room number to somebody where I was certain it was an affair of some kind. And what gets me about it, so I get the text. And what do you do in that situation? Because this affair is not going to happen because the other person on the other side is not getting the room number, right? Like that's sad. It's kind of sad about that. Should I say, "Hey, dude," or ma'am, you got the wrong text. This is Politi. I'm not coming to your room.
It was attended for us three. Whoever decided to show up to the room was the winner. Have you thought about that?
It's possible. Yeah. There you go.
That would have been good.
Yeah.
Not a lot of questions. I think the death of the tech service has killed morale. Someone asked us about Bryce Dortch. He was the only rotation player who wasn't hurt that didn't play. He's one of the 5 freshmen in the class. I think that's kind of indicative of the fact that him and Dylan Grant, who kind of just played the last 2 minutes, are not going to play a huge role this season. Dylan Grant burned his redshirt by playing. I don't think Bryce Dortch is going to end up redshirting because a lot of these guys just don't redshirt. But I would be surprised if he plays much of a factor this season outside of these early season games.
Yeah, he was always the least likely one to play, though, right?
I think so. I thought that myself. I think he has a lot of potential. A lot of length, tall. Has a lot of defensive potential there. But obviously, he's a freshman.
Right.
Those guys sometimes take time to develop when they're not named Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey.
We got one question from Patrick on the Twitter, which is a fill in the blank question. The reason this team makes the NCAA tournament is blank. The reason this team misses the NCAA tournament is blank.
Great exercise.
From what I saw last night, I'm going with makes, certainly. And I mean, the reason is Dylan Harper. I don't know. It's not too outside the box to think of that way. Even before Ace Bailey, he's just too freaking good. He's just going to be really good this year. I don't see there's no sign that there's going to be a freshman drop off or that he's not going to live up to the hype. He's going to be one of the best players in Big Ten. Misses the tournament. Well, I think we saw the other side of that. If Ace Bailey's, or if that was a serious injury, if Dylan at one point went up for a spinning layup, literally lands on the lap of the cameraman behind the basket, that's 2 feet to the left. It's basketball. Who knows?
Sure.
I would say the make blank is the totality. Right. You have elite scorers, good defenders. You have a guy in every role that you could possibly think of, maybe except the big men.
Right.
Right. Of course. So, but I think the totality of it is there, and you saw everybody do their job last night. Misses, same thing you guys and everyone has said since Cliff left. Just afraid of the physicality and not having a dominant rim protector and rebounder.
They'll make it because they have Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. They'll miss it because everyone else isn't able to kind of rise to the occasion and play consistently throughout the rest of the season. I'm less concerned about center today than I was yesterday. I'm not entirely convinced it's going to become a position of strength either. I'm very concerned still about 3-point shooting. I think there is a path to that being fixed if the right guys take the right amount of shots. PJ Hayes and Zach Martini should be taking 5 to 6 shots a game. Other guys on the roster should be taking 1 to 2 or 0. Sometimes if you're wide open for a 3, it's for a reason. So I think once they figure that out, and free throw shooting was not great yesterday either.
No.
Again, need a bigger sample size, not time to hit this button quite yet. We're very far from it. Whatever the opposite of this is, I would hit it for after that first game. I feel much better now than I did again yesterday. But if any of those things go haywire, there is a chance this team misses the tournament. But when you have Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, assuming they stay healthy the whole season, I think you put yourself in great position to at least make the tournament.
All right. Thanks everyone for subscribing.
What? Oh, sorry.
You got another question?
I thought you were going to end the podcast. Sorry.
No. You got any more questions?
No. Everyone else was kind of raving about Lathan Somerville, confused about what day the tech service is ending. My understanding is it's tomorrow, November the 8th. Yes. A lot of people asking about cancellations and their credit cards. And I apologize, folks.
There's
we are not customer service.
Yeah.
And I can't help you. I wish I could. I can't help you.
Just see me at the rack. I'll give you the $5 if you don't get it back from the company. I'm kidding. No one cares. With society.
Buy a popcorn for the people.
That's great. It's such an inside joke that only people would understand. All right. What else?
You got anything, Pat? I don't want to.
Wrestling has its first dual meet this weekend against Duke and Franklin and Marshall at Easton High School. So that'll be their first official action. They had a couple guys at the Princeton Open 2 weeks
wrestling
ago.
Duke at Easton High School. What?
Yes.
What?
So there's a new trend in wrestling that this isn't basically it's a way to get kids off campus to help circulate NIL funds, if that makes sense.
Sure. Just say NIL and I'm like, okay.
Okay. Yeah. But
yep.
That's my understanding of it. It's an opportunity, and you're going to see this again next weekend. Rutgers is facing number 8 North Carolina State, but the match is at Toms River North High School, which used to be the Pine Belt Arena. I forget what it's called now.
Right.
So yeah, another one, and that'll be a big time event for wrestling. So that season's going to jump off real fast too. So something to keep in the back of your mind too. Should be a good team.
I just want to run through the Rutgers transfers. They played their first games Monday through Wednesday. Cliff O'Mori looked awesome for Alabama. I mean, really, really good. 16 points on 6 of 6 shooting, 8 rebounds, I think, in 19 minutes. I mean, he just looked. It's amazing how much better his offensive game is when he has 4 shooters around him and the paint is wide open and he could just dunk the ball at will. And he was good defensively. He looked great. I think Alabama is a great fit. And I think that if Lathan Somerville wasn't so great last night, you'd be looking back at that box score and kind of, wondering what could have been. But Lathan Somerville kind of fixed some of those concerns early. Mawat Mag, not a great debut for BYU on Tuesday. Who else? Derek Simpson started for St. Joe's, helped them get a season opening win. And Antoine Woolfolk, pretty good debut for Miami of Ohio. So I would say as a whole, the Rutgers transfers had a good start to the season. I'm trying to think of if I'm missing somebody. I think I did, but it's fine. As a
Derek
whole.
Simpson.
Derek Simpson played for St. Joe's. They got a win. He looks pretty good. Antonio Choles in junior college. We reported that a couple months ago. But anyway, and then Women's soccer in half an hour. We're recording this at 11 o'clock on Thursday. They will be playing number 1 seed USC in the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament.
Why is that in St. Louis? Is that true? Was that a typo? East St. Louis? Something?
I believe it's in St. Louis. Let me look it up. Which I should know.
It's weird. Already, there's no school. There's no school in St. Louis, right? Is that have they expanded? They take the Gateway Arch as part of their Big Ten terror. I haven't seen that in the graphic yet.
It's hosted by Minnesota. It's at City Park in St. Louis. Yes, maybe they're going to try to expand and add Missouri. Who knows?
Missouri's a good fit.
But they play. Oh, sorry. The game is at 2 p.m., not noon. So people, give yourself a couple hours before logging into Big Ten Network.
How about the Final Four in that? The Final Four women's soccer is the three West Coast teams and Rutgers. That's all the Big Ten tradition flushed down the toilet. Rutgers is holding the mantra for the traditional Big Ten against the invaders.
Wild.
Yeah.
You know who Rutgers brought this to our attention in the Discord was Hall of Fame candidate Kevin Fine. Picked this up, a week ago. So the St. Louis thing, we still don't have a great answer. But my only theory was the Big Ten basketball tournament is going to be in Vegas, right? At one next year. I'm just thinking.
Right. That's Vegas.
I know. But think about this logistically. Where's St. Louis? All right. Dead set in the middle. I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
All right. Okay.
You got the 3 West Coast teams. You got Jersey, right? It's
right
in the middle.
Since when did we ever prepare for this show? Well, what you got?
Rutgers field hockey is defeating number 7 Ohio State in the second half of their first game in the Big Ten tournament. I am having a hard time figuring out how much time is left in the game because they're counting up, and I forget how many periods there are and how many. It's an hour-long game, I think. Right, Pat?
Yeah, we should just probably wrap it up here, Politi.
What's the score?
So it's 1-0, 26 minutes into the game. I'm fairly certain that means there's 4 minutes until halftime, and then they will start the second half.
Right.
So
Rutgers
is yes.
Let me see. Candace, how many minutes in field hockey? She's probably in a meeting.
Good job. She's like, the same thing? What is he saying? That's funny.
That's great.
All right. We'll look that up. We'll look up St. Louis. We won't look up St. Louis. We won't. Anyway, we'll be back after the Minnesota game, maybe after the next basketball game, maybe before. We'll see. Talk a little bit more Rutgers sports. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.